where the rubber always meets the road, I think. Actually, I'm not even sure what that means.
Heartland Newsfeed Radio Network, live at heartlandnewsfeed.com.
Always bad when you're in the house and you hear it. If you're indoors anywhere and you hear it howling, that's bad.
You know, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but because WSMI now carries our Saturday programming, I'm going to throw it in because there's a few people that might, of course, know our announcer, Tom Williams.
Okay.
He had said the funniest thing to me, and I think others were around too, it wasn't directly, but he loved it when the wind blew at his place in Gillespie because then all the trash blew from his yard to the neighbors.
You know, I had thought of that, actually. Friday was our trash day. And I had, where I had the big trash can was in a spot where a lot of snow got thrown.
Oh, yeah.
So I emptied for a while. But I was just wondering about that. First of all, do I even want to take it out there? And B, what if all that stuff fell over and just blew all over the place? If so, hopefully it's on the neighbors I don't talk to.
Right.
That always happened with leaves in the fall.
Right.
Where it wasn't my tree, but all of a sudden the fence is just covered in leaves.
It's true.
That's so funny that he would look forward to that sort of thing. Yeah, let the wind.
Got to look for the silver lining, don't you?
Yes. All right, plenty to come here on a Saturday, RFD, Illinois.
Join Illinois Farm Bureau for the 2019 Governmental Affairs Leadership Conference, Taking Charge of Change. This one-day event takes place February 19th at the President Abraham Lincoln Hotel in Springfield. It covers policy information, state and national legislative updates, and concludes with a legislative reception. Hear from keynote speaker Jesse Waters, co-host of The Five and host of the Fox News program Waters World. To register, contact your county farm bureau or visit ilfb.org/GALC for more information.
Farm Week and Partners Magazine editor Chris Anderson connects rural routes for you. Chris shares her 4 decades of writing expertise by making sure each edition delivers the best information. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I was raised on a farm in Champaign County growing corn, soybeans, popcorn, pumpkins, and poultry. My top priority is to inform, educate, and even entertain Farm Bureau members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Welcome back to RFD Illinois on a Saturday. I'm DeLoss Yonke with our Washington correspondent, Matt Kay. The State of the Union address is can be quite powerful, but at the same time it is a speech that then needs to be executed from. So how have we been this week after the fact?
Well, it was a spectacle, as it usually is when the president addresses a national and even international audience. And he does have that megaphone to get his message across. Unfortunately, DeLoss, I don't think that it has changed much in the way of domestic politics and getting things done. Unfortunately, there is not a good political mood in Washington to improve the atmosphere for legislating. The question is whether anything will get done. The president spoke about some of his goals, including bipartisan ones like building infrastructure and lowering health costs. But at the same time, he raised some of his controversial goals, like securing the border with a border barrier. He talked about ratifying the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal, which is very important to agriculture, which many Democrats don't like in its current form. He talked about dealing with China and its unfair trade practices. That could be a bipartisan effort, but we have to see what the details are when the two countries come to hopefully some agreement on trade reforms before a March 1st deadline when tariffs could go up. Again, the bottom line here is that we have already entered the 2020 election cycle. The campaigning has already started. You have, a dozen or more candidates on the Democratic side. It's a political season again. So one wonders if you can get things done, if you can pass the Mexico-Canada free trade agreement without one side or the other trying to score political points. we have to wait and see what happens with the negotiations on the border wall and how much money, if any, the president's going to get for border security, and then whether another government shutdown can be averted. It is a very tenuous atmosphere and one that we have not yet reached a decision point here going forward.
Meanwhile, China would be another deal. There were some meetings, and then there was a report Thursday there may not be enough meetings, and that continues to go on.
Yeah, we're waiting to see about the president saying that there's going to be some kind of meeting that he will have with President Xi Jinping of China, and whether the two sides are ready to come together on an agreement. We, I believe, have sent another negotiator to Beijing to get something in place ahead of the end of the month, possible meeting between Trump and President Xi. The question is going to be whether there's enough there for the president to sign off on, and whether President Trump will accept something short of the demands for structural reforms that the U.S. has been demanding of China. These are things like intellectual property protections from the Chinese stealing U.S. trade secrets, protections from the Chinese forcing U.S. companies to hand over their technology and other trade information as the price for doing business in China. There are many, many issues here that have to be resolved. It's not just reducing the trade deficit. Yes, the Chinese have agreed to buy more soybeans from the U.S., and that is good news for America's farmers. But the question is, will they make the structural reforms, the big ones that have hurt U.S. exports to China and U.S. business in China? And at the same time, will these be enforceable? Will we have a way of making sure that the Chinese keep their word, which they haven't in the past, when it comes to fair trade?
All right. Sounds good, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Delos. Thanks much.
Matt Kay in D.C. on RFD, Illinois.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our technical skills,
our math, our engineering skills.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills.
You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
This is Let's Talk Horses on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jason Vance. Joining me is Colleen Brady, an extension horse specialist at Purdue University. Today we are going to talk about weaning. And Colleen, weaning can be a stressful time for both the foal and the mare. What needs to be done prior to weaning to make it go smoothly?
As you said, weaning is really a stressful time for both the mare and the foal. You have a lot of changes going on at the time of weaning, and the social change is actually the most difficult. By the time you're weaning, the foal should be eating on its own and be able to maintain its nutritional needs without the mare. There are different strategies about times to wean. Some believe in weaning early, some believe in weaning later. But in general, if the foal is more mature at weaning time, it will be less stressful for both the mare and the foal.
Now, there are several different methods for weaning foals. Talk to us a little bit about some of the different methods.
Okay, so there are several strategies, and you can start by putting them into basic categories, either kind of a cold turkey strategy where you separate the mare and foal and they have no further contact, or a gradual weaning strategy where they spend less and less time together over a period of time. And depending on your situation, different strategies will be better suited. If you have only one foal, that is actually one of the most challenging weaning situations because, as I mentioned earlier, one of the big stressors is the change of the social structure. So if you can provide other horses for that foal to be with or that mare to be with, that really helps support them through that stress. But when you have an only foal, that'll be very difficult to do. Ideally, you leave as much of the full social structure in place as possible. For me, one of my favorite methods is actually, if you have a group of mares and foals, just to gradually remove the mares from the herd as their foals are ready to be weaned, because then the foals remain in that solid social structure and are much less stressed.
Now, once you separated the mare and foal, what are some ways to help them deal with that stress?
Definitely as much socialization as you can provide. If you are not in a situation where you can pull the mares out and leave the foals with other foals, is there another similar aged foal? Then they can be weaned together, so they have a buddy. Having a good exercise program so the mare is getting worked regularly, so that the foal is getting led and handled, and having those sorts of things done will help decrease the amount of stress. If it's at all possible to separate them enough that they cannot hear each other if they're whinnying or if they're calling, that also helps decrease the stress.
Now, if you're using an abrupt method, cold turkey, can the foal or the mare be a danger to themselves or to you?
It's possible. Horses will be horses, and when they become frantic, they can sometimes make poor choices. So it's really important when you're using that type of method to think about the location where you're putting the mare and the foal, putting them in safe fencing or in a stall that's a safe stall, that if they do get a little frantic and do a little running around for a few days, that they don't have the opportunity for them to hurt themselves.
Or you.
Or yourself. And be attentive. And don't use electric fence to try to separate them, because the electric fence will not be a strong enough deterrent to keep a mare and a foal apart.
So what advice do you have for horse owners in regards to weaning?
In general, the more you can handle your foal prior to weaning, so it is comfortable around people, so even in reference to the last question, to both protect yourself and it, that it already knows how to be handled, it knows how to be haltered, it knows how to be led around, it'll be safer in that stressful situation. Also, no matter how difficult it seems, once you separate the mare and foal, keep them apart. If you keep feeling bad for them and reintroducing them to each other, you're basically just extending the length of time. And in fact, your mare will continue to produce milk. Part of the discomfort on the mare's part at weaning time is that she has a full udder of milk and no foal to consume that milk. So there's some discomfort for her at that time until her milk starts to dry up.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Colleen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's Colleen Brady, an Extension Equine Specialist at Purdue University. She's been our guest on Let's Talk Horses. Thank you so much for listening, and please tune in next time for another edition of Let's Talk Horses.
Hello, America, and welcome to the AgResource Livestock Market Watch. I'm Nathan Losey with AgResource Company in Chicago. AgResource offers daily market updates via email, which feature all the latest news along with short and long-term price forecasts. Our reports feature in-depth coverage of the livestock, grain, and oilseed markets, and also comprehensive farm marketing advice, so you can spend less time worrying about the markets and more time focused on your farm or ranch. Go to agresource.com to sign up for a free one-week trial, or use promo code LIVESTOCK at checkout to get 50% off your first month subscription. Cattle futures started Monday with a rally and then spent the rest of the week trading back and forth, but we're able to hold on to early week gains. Cattle slaughter was up for the week, but so far in 2019 has held below a year ago, while carcass weights remain 10 pounds lighter than last year. The lower production figures are now lifting beef prices, while feedlots continue to demand higher prices to offset the lower weights. The cash market has held in a very narrow $1 range for the last month, while the CME has already priced in another $2 to $3 spring cash market rally. A year ago, the cattle market topped at $130, while February cattle this week are near $127. On the other hand, June cattle this week are at $117, or more than $16 over last year's spring low. Hog futures started the week with a very brief rally and ended the week at new lows. The long talked about Chinese demand has yet to materialize, and the CME has spent the last month extracting premiums. Hog futures are now back at normal values relative to the cash market, but the current problem in the hog market is that pork demand has not kept pace with the increase in production, and both the pork cutout and cash hog markets are trading sharply below a year ago. Meat traders are still hopeful that China will become a large pork importer of U.S. or other world pork sometime in 2019, but the timeline keeps getting pushed back. Until next time, I'm Nathan Losey, and thanks for listening this week to the AgResource Livestock Market Watch.
For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason. The weather is next.
From the State Climatologist Office for the Illinois State Water Survey at the University of Illinois Prairie Research Institute, this is Brian Kirshner. Final results show that January 2019 finished slightly cooler and significantly wetter than the long-term average. The statewide January temperature was half a degree below the long-term average, while the statewide January precipitation was 1.17 inches above the long-term average. The heaviest precipitation amounts were in southern Illinois, where locally 5 to 6+ inches were reported. Snow was abundant in January, with snowfall occurring statewide. The highest snowfall total of 30.2 inches occurred in Moline, located in Rock Island County, ranking January 2019 as the snowiest on record for the station. February began with a continuation of an active weather pattern and dramatic temperature swings that brought wintry and icy conditions to the north and heavy rains, severe weather, and flooding further south. Some locations south of I-70 already have over 3 to 4 inches of precipitation for the month. The Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10-day outlook is continuing to favor increased probabilities of wetter than average conditions statewide. In the short term, after a cold but sunny start to the weekend, temperatures will rebound with highs in the 30s and 40s as we head into next week. On Sunday, a weather disturbance looks to bring a chance of snow showers north of I-72, with mixed precipitation and rain showers further south. A second system will follow close behind, bringing a variety of precipitation to the state by Monday night. This is Brian Kirshner from the State Climatologist Office.
And I'm Todd Gleason for ULI Extension. You have a great and a very safe week.
Time to look at the closing numbers for a day and a week with Joe Camp, Agrivisor Services. A report to boot. Joe, a busy day.
Oh, what anticipation we had for that crop report on Friday. 4 of them, really, the big 4 as I call them. Annual crop production, the WASDE report, the quarterly grain stocks numbers, and finally the winter wheat seedings estimates, all released at 11 a.m. Central. Not only because they're the big 4 reports, but because they were delayed. They were originally due out on January 11th, but the government shutdown got in the way, and so they were pushed back to Friday when they were released. Really no fireworks, not that much to speak of. Initially higher the grains went, back down. They traded into negative territory, eventually popping back up to close not very far off of unchanged for the day. The weakest performer, corn, down just a couple of cents here. Some good things to speak of, some negative influences here, and that's why they sort of washed out. The big numbers, first of all, yield for 2018 row crops. Corn, 176.4 bushels per acre. That was down from 178.9, so a bigger cut than anticipated. Same could be said for the soybean number, down to 51.6 bushels an acre. The U.S. government analysts also lopped off some harvested acreage from both corn and soybeans, but not so fast for the bulls there. Those friendly things were offset by reductions to demand. For corn, it was lower ethanol and lower feed and residual usage. For soybeans, the China trade war coming into play here, another cut for the soybean export estimate. Grain stocks report, not really anything special to speak of there, mostly in line with expectation. Winter wheat planting's down just a little bit. All in all, not a big report. We'll transition our focus back to China.
For Illinois agriculture leaders, or those who want to be, this is the Best of Leader page from Illinois Farm Bureau. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Lawmakers in the Illinois Senate Thursday passed a bill that would raise the statewide minimum wage to $15 an hour by January 1 of 2025. While Governor J.B. Pritzker offered few details on the cost, a memo from the governor's office obtained by WCIA-TV included a forecast just for state workers' wage increases by nearly $1.1 billion. In a House hearing, representatives asked the governor's office staff if he'll include in his upcoming budget address the tens of millions of estimated additional costs to taxpayers from an increase in the minimum wage. President Donald Trump said Thursday he did not plan to meet with Chinese Premier Xi before a March 1 deadline set by the two countries to achieve a trade deal. The remarks confirmed comments from administration officials who said the two men were unlikely to meet before the deadline, dampening hopes of a quick trade pact and sparking a drop in U.S. stock markets. Soybean markets were also lower Thursday after the announcement. President Tuesday asked Congress to pass his new trade deal with Canada and Mexico and give him the power to unilaterally increase tariffs on countries that change levies for U.S.-made goods. During the State of the Union, the president said, quote, "I hope you could pass the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement so that we can bring back our manufacturing jobs, expand American agriculture, protect intellectual property, and ensure that more cars are proudly stamped with our four beautiful words, made in the USA," unquote.
That's the Best of Leader page for this week. You can receive an electronic version of Leader Page Monday through Friday. Just go to farmweeknow.com, click the banner, and sign up to receive the farmweeknow.com daily update, which contains the daily edition of the Illinois Farm Bureau Leader Page.
That'll do it for RFD Illinois on a Saturday.
Hey, we have to salute a town, and
We do.
I would like to... Oh, go ahead. You have one in your head. I can see it.
I had Martinsville
Yes!
in my head.
Yes.
Can you save yours for Monday?
Absolutely. I don't really have one.
Oh, okay, good. Martinsville is in Clark County, population 1167.
Hello.
Sponsored by Country Financial, your farm is your family's legacy and part of your hometown heritage. While you work sun up to sundown to get the job done, we're here protecting the things you love every step of the way. Country Financial. Learn more at countrycrop.com. I'm DeLoss Yankee.
I'm Rita Frazier. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us here on the RFD Radio Network.
Hey, you know, a great way to reach farmers, reach those in agriculture, is through local radio. In fact, Rita, from the National Association of Farm Broadcasters, they have research that shows that farmers listen, 87% say they listen 3+ days a week, 74% say they listen 4+ days per week.